He was only 14 years old, too small for the electric chair. So prison officials placed him on a Bible to raise him high enough for the straps. Just minutes later, George Stinney Jr. became the youngest person executed in the United States during the 20th century. 70 years later, a judge ruled that his trial had been fundamentally unjust. This is the heartbreaking story of George Stinney Jr. George Junius Stinney Jr. was born on October 21, 1929, in Alcolu, South Carolina. He was a quiet African-American boy who loved school, helping his family, and spending time with his siblings. His family lived in a deeply segregated community during the era of Jim Crow laws, where black and white residents lived largely separate lives. No one could have imagined that his name would one day become a symbol of one of America's most controversial miscarriages of justice. On March 23, 1944, two white girls, 11-year-old Betty June Binnicker and 7-year-old Mary Emma Thames, went missing after riding their bicycles through Alcolu. The next day, their bodies were discovered in a ditch. Both had suffered fatal head injuries. The small town was shocked, and authorities quickly began searching for a suspect. Why George became the target? Witnesses said George had spoken briefly with the girls earlier that day, when they asked him where to find wildflowers. That simple conversation made him the focus of the investigation. George was arrested within hours. His parents were forced to leave town after receiving threats from an angry mob, leaving the frightened 14-year-old isolated and without his family's support. The confession that raised questions. Police claimed George confessed to the murders, but no written confession was ever produced. There was no audio recording, no signed statement. George later said he was innocent. Many historians and legal experts have questioned whether any confession was voluntary, especially considering his age and the circumstances of his interrogation.
You, the defendant, are accused of this crime. You were at the scene. You can't deny it.
I didn't do anything.
The evidence is against you.
It's all lies.
George's trial began on April 24, 1944. It lasted only a few hours. His court-appointed lawyer called no witnesses in his defense. The prosecution presented its case, and an all-white jury deliberated for only about 10 minutes before returning a guilty verdict. George was sentenced to death. He was just 14 years old. On June 16, 1944, George was taken to the execution chamber. He weighed only around 95 pounds, 43 kilograms. Because he was so small, officials reportedly had difficulty fitting him into the electric chair. Accounts state that a Bible or booster was placed beneath him so the restraints would fit. Witnesses described the execution